Okay, I'm going to do my best to define progressivism, I guess is what it's called. Uh, Obviously, you look at the word and it's about progress, right? I mean, that very much uh, is the context because progressives say that we're not making progress. Progressives say that the capitalists have it all, capitalism has it all the way it wants it to be, uh, maybe even a few more people for them to prey upon, right? So progressives, I guess, rise up when they feel like that's what capitalism is doing. And capitalism's pretending like it's making progress, but it's only really making progress for the rich. Uh, so progressives are really a diverse, uh, lots of opinions, lots of ideas. But I would say that in order to call yourself a progressive, you do have to at least have good intentions towards at least all American citizens and the world. Now, to me, everything happens within a context. Everything happens within an environment. Everything happens within a greater reality. And to me, we're not at that point yet where we start thinking about the whole world. I mean, I'm sorry, but most people are just like, well, you have to feel sorry for every person on the planet. And I would say, actually, you don't even have to feel sorry for everybody on the planet when things are so bad. I mean, you can feel sorry for them, but sometimes sacrifices have to be made, right? However, not the kind of sacrifices the rich people are. I mean, if they have their say, then it's always everybody else that has to sacrifice, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious, I think, when you look at people and the way or the our history. So I just say for now it's about American citizens, and that means black, white, brown, yellow, red, whatever. So and that's the difference between progressives and conservatives. Progressives kind of believe the same thing. I mean, conservatives kind of believe the same thing, except for that they don't believe, like when, let me give you an analogy, okay? Okay, so a conservative, the way he feels like is, okay, you got a big pie, right? And you got, well, I'll go back to what I said, a brown person, a white person, a black person, a yellow person, a red person, so like uh, Asian, uh, Native American, Indian, uh, so you got these people right all around the table. Now the conservative would give a big piece of pie to the white person, and but he'd tell the white person, look, you get this big piece of pie because you make sure that the rest of these people don't get too upset about what I'm about to do. And then he cuts up a bunch of littler pieces of pie and he hands it out to the rest of the people. So that's like conservatism, right? So now everybody's got their piece of pie, right? The white people have got this big piece of pie. But now, when you look at the table and the pie on the table, actually, most of the pie is still there. It belongs to the rich, the ultra rich. They've got the pie. So, or let's say they have, instead of a pie, they have a pie making machine. So they can make all the pie they want. Well, they can. I mean, they're limited by how much they have to work with, the resources, and they have all that. They have all the resources, right? In real life. I mean, if they don't outright own it, they control it, and they can take it away from the people who supposedly own it. I mean, in theory, I always thought that owning something meant you owned it, but that's not how it works in this country. You can have a piece of paper or a deed down at the courthouse or whatever, but if the rich guy wants to take it away from you, all he has to do is eliminate your income, eliminate your savings, and when you can't finally pay your taxes, they'll take it away from you, or a multitude of other ways. I mean, he can buy it off you. And then, so anyway, so he's got the pie, he's got the oven and the flour and the pans and everything. And in the beginning, there wasn't enough pie to go around. So he'd give smaller and smaller slices. But as time went on, he realized that while the Indian and the Asian and the black, they did all the work, and the white people kept them in line, he realized he could make really more than enough pie for everybody if he really wanted to. But he was afraid that the more intelligent the brown man and the black man and the more I'd call it resourceful or capable they became, the more likely it would be that they would notice what was really going on. That, yeah, you can make a lot more pie, and you can give everybody at the table who's got the little pieces, you could give them all pretty big pieces, right? If you wanted to. I mean, we're doing all the work. We know we could make enough for ourselves too, but the rich people, what they said was, well, once we get them to work and make our houses, we're not going to arrange for them to make their houses. So then the progressives are people who were making the white people who were making and everybody else work and toe the line. They're the ones who said maybe they got black friends, maybe they've got Native American friends, and they said, hey, wait a minute, man, what you're doing isn't right, because you have the ability to create progress for all the people at the table, to give them bigger pies, but you're not doing it for whatever reason. I kind of gave a couple of little reasons. There's a lot of reasons. And they're saying there's no progress. So we're progressives. We want to see progress. And as long as I've been alive, And as far as understanding it, I've understood it at a very basic level since I was a kid. Okay? They're not doing it. It's not that they can't do it. It's that they're not doing it. And, different people, rich people, are going to have different reasons. Some of them just outright jealous. But really, the core issue for them is motivation. So they believe that motivating that population, minorities, except for they might not be minorities, they could be a majority, but they're still oppressed. They believe that, and this is the main reason, they believe that fear is the best motivator to make sure that those people are always there uh, to serve them. And that's what it's all about, It's all about getting them to build a big house for you and uh, kind of buying loyalty from them, etc. So progressives now a lot of progressives do care about the world, and they think that the United States should be out to save the whole world. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, we can't do that. Americans, even all the progressives, would be very unhappy if America decided, because nobody else is going to do it. So everybody else would watch us get poor trying to save the whole world. Okay, so we need to wait. And I'll tell you, the best thing to do is to take care of our own people and be an example to the world. And after we take care of our own people, this country will be so great that, yes, at that point it will be able to, on a limited basis, bring people here. But, eventually, I don't think we should let refugees stay. I think we should bring them here. If we bring them here at all, and I say for now we don't bring them at all, I agree with Trump, man. As a matter of fact, he's playing on people like my sympathies, right? I mean, I agree with him. We can't afford to bring 5 billion people to this country. Or how many ever. I mean, most of the world is poor. But what we could afford to do after we became I hate to say it, great again, except where we've never been great before, so you can't be. After we become great, then, what we could do is we could let them into the country, not allow them to become citizens, but we could build up their life, make them intelligent, and then we could arrange to send them back, but we could fund them wherever they go. So we pay for a house in Guatemala or El Salvador or Nicaragua or wherever, and we actually fund them there. I mean, I got news for you, man. Everything you do to help somebody pays you back. I mean, I know you don't all understand economics. I got a bachelor's in business, and I've studied economics all my life. International economics, local, macro, micro, what have you. Okay, so, and I went to school for like 10 years. I know I don't have the degree to show for it because personally I don't give a shit about degrees. But I took a lot of classes, and while I don't consider them that important, they didn't help me that much, and they aren't the major. I mean, 99% of what I know, I've had to go out and find out myself. But anyway, so I do know what I'm talking about. And so when you send these people back and they take care, they're gonna, because they're now upper class in their countries, because in their countries, if you're not groveling in the dirt, then you're upper class. Because I know I lived in Indonesia, and you better believe, and I've been all around the world, but in Indonesia, I learned more about poverty and despair, and just, I mean, that's what creates a progressive man. When you live in a house with 20-foot walls with glass and barbed wire on top of them, and the people use the walls of your house to build like shelters against, so that they have one solid wall, and then use sticks with nails in them to get the mangoes off of your tree on your side, or as far as they can reach, grab the mangoes. I mean, this is just this. When you live something like that, you start to understand. I mean, even as a person who didn't have to live, and now I've been a poor American, I've been poor here. All that stuff, all that stuff is just absolutely of total immense value from an experience point of view. Whether you're seeing it from one side, I mean, and you should, if you're lucky, you get to see it from both sides. If you're not, listen to people like me. I mean, I've hung out with the richest people in the world, and I can tell you they're fucked up. I can tell you that they're fucked up not only in the way that they view the rest of the world and the rest of the people, and they have total disdain for most of them, but I can tell you that they're fucked up in their lives. Most of them are totally unhappy. I mean, I've I've seen them do things to each other because they hate each other, because uh, they're even jealous of each other's money, right? And the rich all suck off of each other. Most rich people aren't rich. They're just sons and daughters and wives and friends who suck off of the very rich, and it creates all kinds of. I mean, I will tell you this, that most of them don't really like each other. They're just hanging out with each other for the money. So my dad hung out and pretended to like Sam Khashoggi, Adnan Khashoggi's younger brother, who owned a furniture factory in Kunduz, it's called, and my dad went to work for him in Lebanon. But in the beginning, he didn't pay him well enough, and my dad was very unhappy. And so, all I'm saying is, don't believe the hype. I mean, rich people are not happier than poor people. I mean, yeah, when you reach a point of poverty where you don't have anything and it affects your total psyche, your happiness factor, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so anyway, I'm getting off the subject. So progressives. So I'm going to define progressives as uh, a group of people who are unhappy with the capitalist system as I defined it, stymieing progress. So getting to that point where they could help a lot of people and they don't. That's what I'm going to say. Now, does that mean free education for everybody? Well, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that you're going to try to make Harvard take 10 billion students a year? You know? So obviously you're talking about just for Americans, right? Okay, so are you going to try and make Harvard take 50 billion people a year? Or 20 or 10 or something? Well, that'd be a little difficult, wouldn't it? As a matter of fact, it'd be hard to get, if you wanted to give everybody free education, it'd be hard to get the current educational system to even be able to educate that many people in a year, right? Uh, so obviously you're talking about you're going to have to do something else. So here, I'll cover education real quick as part of my definition of education, progressivism. For education, what you do, and this is so simple, and I've been saying it for years, and it is starting to catch on, and to a certain extent, it's already being done because there are lots of online or televised classes. So you've got these Harvard and Yale, supposedly the best teachers in the world, but I would dispute that because I think that education's a joke. It's incredibly propagandized. It's incredibly designed to keep this capitalist status quo that I was talking about going. So they're training the white people to how to manage all the rest of the people. And that's another thing they do is they redefine things so that they seem like they're normal. So being a good manager isn't really about being a good manager. It's more about managing the slaves, right? Except for slavery isn't like it was. You don't out and out own somebody, but you do own them. You own them in the way that a gamer talks about, oh, you're owned, I owned you. And that's kind of a racist kind of thing too. But anyway, it's not. It's nobody thinks of it that way, but that's the problem is the way that people think. They can be racist and not even have a clue they're being racist. So I mean, gamers will constantly say, owned, like I owned you. Well, are we unwittingly using a very, very racist thing? I mean, I think so. So, you know, so we definitely need to think of progressivism for now. We can get off into some of the wilder stuff, like I was talking about funding, bringing people here as refugees and basically rejuvenating them and sending them back as advocates of progressivism, right? Not that there aren't plenty of them there, but maybe more than advocates, maybe even fighting the dictators or whatever that are there. And maybe we protect them. Maybe we tell them, look, this is a refugee from America and we're sending them back to their country and you're going to hands off. And then you get into the possibility of war over protecting people who you're sending, to a foreign country to on behalf, to work on behalf of the people. I mean, it could turn into a war. And, progressives, I wouldn't say progressives, but the left or whatever you can, the anti-war movement needs to, they're anti-war while they're here in the United States and all protected and shit. But you send an army into their neighborhood and they start beating and killing people and subjecting them to, then all of a sudden they would not be as pacific as they are, right? So in this case, I have to agree with a lot of very right-wing people. It's very easy to be a total anti-war pacifist until somebody beats the shit out of you, threatens to kill you, kills one of your family members, right? And it's something that we're Americans are guilty of all the time. Every time we drop a bomb right now, every 12 minutes. Maybe that's not the same as cutting somebody's throat, but it is the same as cutting 100 people's throats. I mean, let's be honest about these things. So, pacifists, anti-war people, great. I'm anti-war too, but you got to be realistic. So anyway, uh, we're going to define this progressivism as being 99% about progress for American citizens. And whether we let people into this country or not has to be based on that. I mean, if we're going to be concerned about the progress of American citizens, we have to take into account the effect that bringing a whole bunch of people into the country might have. So we get our scientists together and we study the matter and we decide how many and what kind of people we're going to allow into the country. And yeah, so you say, well, some of those people are going to die. They're refugees. They're trying to get out. Yeah, I know it's sad. Makes me sad. I'd love to be able to do something about it. But let's make those decisions based on science. Let's have a whole department of social science and let them decide. They can look at the agriculture, they can look at the production, they can look at the international trade, how much we can buy from other countries, and then they can say, well, what do we need to make things right for the American citizens? And then if there's some left over, maybe we can take some people in. Maybe we can start doing like I suggested and start a program for rejuvenating these people, so maybe we can't keep them here, but maybe we can bring them here and solve their little problems. So you've got some lady, she's being beaten by her husband in Guatemala, threatened, knife point, gun point, whatever. So maybe you let her into the country for a little while, you tell her you're not going to become an American citizen, but we're going to solve your problem. We're going to help you while you're here. We're going to make sure you have a decent life while you're here, and we're going to fix your problem at home. So we get in contact with Guatemala, and we set up a thing, and we tell them, look, we're going to be sending Americans with her, and they're going to stay with her in Guatemala until we feel confident that her problem is solved, until we feel confident that her husband is under control, or her ex-husband, until she's got a divorce, until the people who would threaten her are put in where they're not a threat anymore. Anyway, so progressivism is about bringing social equality. I say for now, until we get our shit together, for American citizens. Trump grabbed this and ran with it, and him and his followers, these Make America Great assholes, they perverted it. What they did was they were like, Make America Great. You know what they're talking, you know what they're doing, you know what they're talking about. I don't have to explain it to you, do I? Unless you're some idiot who sits around watching Fox News all day and thinks, for instance, that giving white people everything they want, the ones who just a certain group, the ones who follow the rich and do their dirty work, and that's what they think making America great is again. If they had their way, black people in Mississippi would be living in shanties down on the bayou with no running water and what have you. Okay, so that's what progressivism is. Well, it's a lot like communism. I mean, communism just means, well, I'm not going to get into that. That's for another thing. But uh, all the communists ever really wanted, and all the progressives really wanted, and in a way, progressives in this respect, progressives and communists are all pretty much the same thing, right? I mean, all they do is, first of all, they care a whole lot about the poorest people, the suffering. And then they care a lot about the poor. And then they care a lot, but maybe not so much, about the lower middle or the lower class or the middle lower class. I mean, what I'm saying is the more you go up and the more people have, the less progressives are really worried about them. And communists are the same way. You know, all that communists really cared about was they used to see like people begging for food or people trying to organize for a strike or something, trying to fight oppression, right? Whether it's food or a job or whatever. And they'd see these rich people buy these small armies and just like cavalry, like ride over these people, and people would just get stomped on by horses or shot and whatever. So, I mean, obviously, this creates like really, really militant people and angry people. But generally speaking, all they really cared about was doing something about these poor people, and these people are getting run over and stuff. They were just the people who were standing up to the bad people, right? The rich, ultra rich Carnegies and what have you. So, that's all it is. I mean, we're not like dictators. We're not fascists. We're not trying to uh, take away all the rich people's money, or I mean, we're a million years away from that, right? All we're trying to do is raise up the poor a little bit, get them out of the total dump that they're in. And a lot of us are like me. I'm not really poor, poor. I've spent a lot of my life working poor, right? Because I worked up till the age of about 53. So, that's all we're trying to do. We're not this portrayal of us as trying to take everything away, take like Robin Hood, take from the rich and give to the poor. That's bullshit, man. We've never been about that. We don't have time or the money or the resources or the guns, and we don't want. I would say, generally speaking, nobody has ever wanted to have to fight for it. We would like to just get it. I mean, when people have decided to fight for it, that's when they've been pushed really far. It always started out with them just saying, "Look, can't you just listen to reason?" Right? Right? Am I right? It never in this history of the human race did just 100,000 people all of a sudden grab guns and just start massacring rich people in the few revolutions that we've had. Because in fact, the human race has been pretty fucking docile, right? In the face of all this oppression and deceit. So, it's always started out as just people saying, "Hey, man, isn't this a little unfair?" And then the next thing you know, you're going, "Hey, man, this is really unfair," and they don't give a shit. So anyway, so progressivism, of course, has had that aspect of it. Who are the people who are progressives, and how much have they fought, and what has been the genesis of their movement. You know, it never did just, like I said, that's irrational that it would just all of a sudden just start killing rich people or taking away, or even wanting to take their stuff, steal their stuff, or hurt them in any way. No, there's no way it ever started as that. That's just illogical. So the progressive movement is, obviously a reaction to oppression, and that ranges from everything to a harsh word to somebody getting shot or blown up or something. I mean, us getting shot or blown up. I'm not talking about them. 'Cause God knows they don't want. I don't want them trying to put me in jail again just because I have an opinion. So I think that covers it. Uh, there's a few other things I probably would like to say about it. I'd like to talk about the freedom that progressivism represents. I think that progressives should understand that people should be free under our system to do pretty much what they want as long as it doesn't hurt innocent people and as long as it's not that important. Like we don't want to be grammar or spelling Nazis. Well, you should apply that to the whole system. So, if somebody in the privacy of their own house wants to try a little bit of heroin or something, or some other pretty hard drug, well, you know, they're not hurting anybody. But if the next thing you know, they're all fucking strung out and they're walking down the street trying to fuck your neighbor's dog, all of a sudden, then. So you base your laws and you base your policing on behavior, not on what they did. Like if they wanted to get drunk some night, but they just hung out and played video games and hung out with their friends, that's one thing. But if they got drunk and climbed up on your roof and stole your antenna off the top of your house, well, that's behavior, right? And I think that people would behave themselves more if they were under a proper system. I think a lot of the bad behavior we have is a result of, the capitalist system doesn't exactly promote good behavior towards each other because the capitalist system is about keeping people from communing. So if they can create people who really don't like each other because they do bad things to each other, then that works in their interest. Can you get that? Can you understand that? It's very conspiratorial, I know, but the fact is they do that. There's all kinds of illness in our society. There's all kinds of, and then on top of that, on top of creating basically people who are abrasive, so that you really run into so much abrasiveness of obnoxious people. As soon as you get out your door and there's people driving like idiots and all kinds of shit. So it makes you very antisocial. But on top of that, they're taking away everything that is social. Instead of there being stores on every corner and little benches in front of them where people from the community sit around and eventually, of course, they talk. Now our housing and our neighborhoods are very sterile. They're not a place for communities to organize and get together. and people, like I said, because of the abrasiveness. Okay, so I'd say that's another aspect of progressivism too. That I would think that we would try and get away from that. Matter of fact, I would think that progressivism would attempt to get away from all of the negative aspects of capitalism. And with that, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to call that my definition of progressivism. I'll listen to this for a little while and listen to comments that people make, what they think progressivism is, and maybe do a follow-up with all that kind of stuff addressed. So feel free to, tell me what you think progressivism is. And I spell it with a Z because I think that progressivism sounds like it's spelled with a Z. If it was S, it would be progressivism. And, so I spell all the isms with a Z. And I like to do that. I don't tell everybody else they have to do that, but I do. And that's an example of what I was just talking about, of behavior. It really doesn't matter, right? Nobody's going to look at progressivism spelled with a Z and say, I don't understand what that word is. You know it's the same word as progressivism spelled with an S. And our society should not be hung up, progressive society should not be hung up on every little detail that doesn't matter, okay? I mean, it does matter a tiny bit because I think that we should have, and this is just me. I just think that we should change a lot of things the way we do them. But I don't tell people they have to. I mean, first of all, I can't. I'm nobody. So I can't tell people what to do. Nor would I ever want to tell people what to do. But I do want to tell people what I think they should do. So, yes, I think we should change our language to a more rational, more logical. I think that we should have a phonetic uh, based spelling system so that you can just spell things based on the way they sound. So I say capitalism, so I say CAP. Well, I don't know, because we have these rules for language that are very strange, and then we break them all the time. So uh, otherwise we wouldn't have spelling bees, because everybody would be able to spell every word just by going off of the sound, the way they say it. And if somebody said, well, that's wrong, you could say, well, that's the way I pronounce it. Pronounce it progressivism, not progressivism. With an S, it would be ism. No, it's progressivism. Z. So, not S. Yeah, I am very logical. And I do things based on the data, right? Am I wrong? Maybe. Maybe I'm wrong some of the time. But one of the good things about me is when I'm wrong and somebody tells me I'm wrong, I don't just start calling them a fuckhead and mind your own business. I go, really? Well, show me how I'm wrong. And it happens every 10 years or so. No, I'm just joking. No, seriously, people show me the error of my ways. And you know what? I listen. And when they're done talking, I say, well, yeah, you're right. You're right. And I'm going to start doing that your way. And when they don't have a good argument, because usually they're right-wingers and they think that their stupid arguments are actually going to fool me. I tell them, you know what, you're so full of shit, your eyes are turning brown. You know, I don't, I don't take it. But I'm the first one to admit I'm wrong. Very quick to admit I'm wrong. Very eager to hear the other side. But boy, don't start with me on some Republican talking point, some Fox News talking point, because boy, I know them already. I've heard them all a million times, and that makes me mad actually. I just want to walk up to the person and punch him in the face. And there's like establishment talking points, whether it's establishment Republicans, which are all Republicans are establishment, or establishment Democrats, which are the people who've screwed us in our own party for our whole lives. Okay, so anyway, I got off subject there towards the end, but it's important stuff. It's important to know how to think, and I just was talking about that, how to think, how to manage your life. Okay, well, I got things to do, so I've done my best to help you with this progressivism thing, and I hope you enjoyed it.